Welcome in, everybody, to the First Call podcast. Jeremy Plonk and Jeff Siegel from Xpressbet. We do this every Friday, and we handicap weekend stakes races. No bigger weekend for us in the First family than Preakness weekend, which comes up this Saturday at Pimlico. Great racing on Friday as well, so we've moved the podcast up a day, recording on Thursday this week. Welcome to those of you watching through the First Preakness Wager Guide as well. Be sure to check out all the great handicapping analysis towards the Preakness Stakes inside the Wager Guide. Jeff Siegel is my partner every single week, and Jeff, this is a big one.
Well, this is a great week. As you mentioned, we got a terrific card on Friday, Black Eyed Susan, and then of course the Preakness critical race on the road for a potential Triple Crown. Jeremy, only one horse can win it, and he's got a chance. He's got a look because I really do think Mage has got is a likely winner on Saturday, and then after that, he's on his own. But I'm going to try to get him through Saturday, and I know the people at Naira will be rooting for him as well. Business booms when you got a Triple Crown at stake, and so that's what we're looking at. From a gambling standpoint, though, I don't know what kind of price he's going to be in. There are a couple in here that definitely, have a chance to upset him. But the way he performed 2 weeks ago at Churchill Downs, that was no fluke. That was an exceptional performance on a highly rated race, and Mage did everything that a legitimate Kentucky Derby winner was supposed to do.
Kings Barnes, the undefeated runner for Tom Pletcher, is the leader. Here's two Phils making a move on the inside, and the two of them hook up, and Jareth Loveberry has taken two Phils to the front. And Kings Barnes is running in second. Hick Show is circled up on the outside as they come to the top of the stretch, and they're into the stretch, and two Phils has turned for home on top. Kings Barnes, here's Mage coming strongly down the outside. Angel of Empire is putting in his run, and there's 1 furlong to run. Two Phils on the inside, trying to hold off Mage. Mage has taken the lead here as they come into the final 16th, and it is going to be Mage to win the Kentucky Derby. And then it was two Phils, Angel of Empire and a photo. Disarm was fourth. Mage has done it in 2:01.57 seconds under Javier Castellano.
And now we literally turn the page to the Preakness Stakes. The 7 rivals from Mage will be none from the Kentucky Derby. A historic absence of Derby challengers for the Derby winner here. And if you got 22-1 in the Preakness future wager, congrats, because the morning line is 8-5 on Mage and could go even lower than that. We will talk plenty more on the Preakness Stakes as the capper to this week's show. Let's start with our schedule of horses and races that we will talk about over the next 30, 45 minutes or so. Friday at Pimlico, it's a huge day of racing. The Black Eyed Susan Stakes featured, the Pimlico Special, part of a big multi-stakes undercard, half dozen stakes or so on Friday. And then we'll get into the Saturday action with the Chick Lang, the Gallarette, the Dinner Party on the Turf, the Maryland Sprint, the Jimmy Murphy, and Preakness Stakes 148. So those are the races that we will handicap, of course, throughout the course of this podcast. I want to remind you that when you play with FirstBet and XpressBet this weekend at Pimlico, you want to do it with us. $10 money back special on all win bets. Any race on the card Friday, any race on the card Saturday. The money back special means if you bet a win bet and your horse runs second or third, you will get your money back up to $10. So if you bet $8, you get all $8 back. If you bet $30 to win, you'll get up to $10 back if your win bets finish second or third. So you've got some safety net to work with Friday and Saturday at Pimlico. But as I like to say, when we have this promotion, Jeff's going to make sure you don't need that safety net. He's going to give you the winners. No seconds, no thirds this weekend, Jeff. Let's start with the Pimlico Special. It's our first handicapping chore of the weekend. And this is a time-honored, tradition-rich race. You go back to the Sea Biscuits of the world. I remember skipping high school to see the Pimlico Special when I was a teenager, go to the races on a Friday with my dad and taking a day off from education to get that racetrack education. This is a race that's near and dear to me. It's near and dear to a lot of historical fans of horse racing. And in this year's Pimlico Special, we'll see who will make their name in history. This is now a grade 3 stakes race worth $250,000. It's at the Preakness distance of 1 mile and 3/16. Who'd you end up with in here?
I had a hard time with this race because I looked at Rattle and Roll, who's back in winning form. Yep. He's a colt you've always touted, Jeremy. It looks like he's gotten past that Derby campaign, pre-Derby campaign he had as a 3-year-old, and now has found himself as a 4. and then Law Professor, and who's got more tactical speed than Rattle
Right.
and Roll. It's coming off a big win. What made it hard for me was these horses look very similar. Rattle and Roll's run 16 times. He's got 6 wins. Law Professor has run 16 times. He's got 6 wins.
Right.
Numbers-wise, Rattle and Roll might be a tad faster. He's had 3 triple-digit buyer performances. Law Professor has yet to have one, but they're both good. And the way the pace scenario looks, to me, it looks like it might be rather modest, going a mile and 3/16, which may give Law Professor a little bit of an edge. And the way he performed in the Excelsior Aqueduct on a track last time out tells me that he's good. And if he runs back to his last race, he might be able to upset the 9-5 morning line favorite Rattle and Roll. But Law Professor coming off a very sharp win.
His trainer, Rob Atras, is on a roll lately in New York, and this horse was on a roll in the Excelsior, as you mentioned. Let's take a look back.
Law Professor is the target, a quarter mile left to go, and now kicks for home. Keystone Field is back to second. Far back to the rest right now. Law Professor is just opening up here, is now 3-4 widening lengths in front, is approaching the final furlong, is drifting out here in the stretch. Keystone Field continues to chase. Law Professor is well clear. Miles D is third. Law Professor gets it done. Was a short price favorite, and Law Professor Manny Franco, they win the Excelsior.
So it's Law Professor, top choice for Jeff in the Pimlico Special. Should be a 2-horse race in there, I believe, with Rattle and Roll. Let's go to the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes next on the program. They go as races 12 and 13, back-to-back on a 14-race card. The George E. Mitchell Black-Eyed Susan Stakes, Grade 2 company. These are the Phillies version of the Preakness Stakes, a mile and an eighth on the main track. And we've got a field of 12 in the entry box for the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes. Let's take a look at that field. It includes Hoosier Philly, who at one time this winter was expected to be the big favorite for the Kentucky Oaks. She's in rebound mode after a couple losses, trying to get back on the beam. You've got horses like Comparative for Brad Cox, who are on the rise, but Feza has been the steady Eddie of this group, Jeff, and maybe of the entire 3-year-old crop, because this has been an up and down 3-year-old class this year. We saw Pretty Mischievous win the Kentucky Oaks. She had a little bit of a step back in the Fairgrounds Oaks. Nobody has just been consistently on top, but Feza, she's never been beaten in her 5 starts.
No, I mean, and she's getting better with every race, too. It's not like she's peaked and kind of maintaining her form. You might question who she's been beating out here in California. I don't think the also-rans are all that great, but the way she's been demolishing them and the way she's been training since then, and her style, which is always, close up and then kick on. She doesn't worry about pace or anything else like that. She can make her own trip. I think Feza is exceptional, and she has a chance really with a outstanding performance in the Black-Eyed Susan to kind of go to the top here. I think it's pretty hard to ignore a filly who will have been undefeated then in 6 starts if she doesn't. Right. But her win in the Santa Anita Derby, Santa Anita Oaks was outstanding, and she's trained well since. I expect another major performance, maybe a career top performance from Feza.
Let's take a look at her Santa Anita Oaks. Frank Biramati on the mic.
Feza takes the lead with a quarter of a mile to go, and Tell Me No Lies is next, followed by Venganza. Window Shopping putting in a valiant effort with a furlong left to go, and it's Feza with a 3-length lead. Clearly Unhinged and Tell Me No Lies, Window Shopping, all left in the wake of the fabulous Feza, who's 5 for 5 and wins the Santa Anita Oaks with plenty in the tank.
We've got some additional coverage at expressbet.com and at news.first.com of Preakness Friday, if you will, the Black-Eyed Susan Day card. You can get the Meet the Contenders blog, which takes you through all 12 of these contenders and introduces you to their records and their strengths and weaknesses. You can also get Frank Caruli's blog on the late pick 4 and how he's going to attack the pick 4 on Friday. That's available at Xpressbet and at First. So check those things out. And also, of course, in the Preakness Wager Guide, the first Preakness Wager Guide, which is available for access now as we speak. Millie Ball is back to handicap the Black-Eyed Susan. Let's check in with Millie now and see what she thinks of this run for the Black-Eyed Susans.
Well, there's a field of 12 for the Black-Eyed Susan, and Feza is the morning line favorite. She's done nothing wrong in 5 starts. It looks, judging from her workouts, that Bob's continues to work on teaching her to rate in the morning. She really took that next step forward in the Santa Anita Oaks when she came from off the pace. So I'm expecting her to be up close, but not on the lead. It's tough to gauge really how good she has been working in the morning because her company has not been able to stay with her for very far. She's the lone grade 1 winner in the field, and she gets a great post with plenty of time off that Santa Anita Oaks victory. I'm going to put Brad Cox underneath with the number 7 comparative. He's had a phenomenal year. The question I have with this 3-year-old filly is who she's run against, but I love her pedigree. She's by Street Sense and out of a Bernardini mare. She's got a lot of upside, and I think she's getting good just at the right time. Miracle, I'm going to put her in 3rd based on her form when 2nd in the Rachel Alexandra Stakes. That looks pretty good after the Kentucky Oaks now, and I'll give her an excuse in the Gulfstream Park Oaks that day. That's the way I see the Black-Eyed Susan.
And for more from Millie and her wagering strategies for the race, and Eddie Olczyk's picks for the Preakness Stakes, Jeff Siegel, myself, all the handicappers across the first family of tracks, be sure to see that video and more inside the Preakness Wager Guide. Some of you are watching this podcast right now inside the Wager Guide, so scroll through and check it out. And if you're not there, go to news.first.com and click on the Wager Guide link, and you'll get into the Preakness Wager Guide. Jeff, there's a lot of ways to bet coming up on Friday and Saturday. There's some multi-race wagers, some multi-day wagers. I want to let people know a little bit about those before we shift our attention from Friday to Saturday, because we've got a 2-day all stakes pick 5 that's available from Pimlico, and you can bet this at First Bet and Xpressbet or any wagering outlet around the country. The 2-day all stakes pick 5 will be the Hilltop Stakes race 11 and the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes race 13 from Friday. So Friday's races 11 and 13, that will pair up with the 10th, the 12th, and the 13th on Preakness Day, the Jim McKay, the Jimmy Murphy, and the Preakness. So an all stakes pick 5 races 11 and 13 on Friday, then races 10, 12, and 13 on Saturday. These are attractive bets. You're looking at a low 12% takeout on these bets. So this is something you really want to take a look at and be interested in. We also have an all dirt pick 5. If you like just dirt racing, this is an interesting one here because it's Friday's races will be races 8, an allowance race, and the Pimlico Special and Black-Eyed Susan. So Friday's races 8, 12, and 13 start the all dirt pick 5. And then that will include races 11 and 13 on Preakness Day, the Maryland Sprint, and the Preakness Stakes. So if you can't figure out the way to hook them up and play between Friday and Saturday, I don't know what else we can give you, Jeff.
Well, the good news actually is that I just checked the weather, and the whatever chance of rain that may have existed on Saturday is dissipated. So you don't have to worry about any change in surface if you're playing these Friday, Saturday races. I think we're going to have a fast track and great conditions for both days, which is good. I'm going to try to make money on Friday with my exacta of Feza to Merlaza. I'm going to hammer that really, really hard. Merlaza, another Brad Cox trained filly. I think that's a Medaglia d'Oro filly that's getting really good. And I wouldn't be surprised if she actually gives Feza a little bit of a run for her money, although I do think Feza will win. But that's my exact here. I'll take whatever profit. Hopefully there will be profit for that. And then really kind of go out into the Saturday fairly aggressively, because I think there's some good gambling on Saturday in the undercard races, in addition to whatever you may want to play in the Preakness itself.
Yeah, and we told you about those multi-race pick 5s. Of course, there's the traditional Black-Eyed Susan Preakness Daily Double that you can also play too. So if you're playing a double, Jeff, you're just looking at Feza. Would you use Merlaza, or are you just going to Feza?
I'd say with her. I'm the main hit, the main push is Feza, but I don't want to be empty-handed if my second choice, who I think is really good, Merlaza, wins. I'll protect a little bit. I don't want to take too much out of that, simply because I don't want to cut into whatever profit, which might be meager actually if you go favorite to favorite. But Merlaza is worth protecting, and if she were to win, I won't feel it won't stink so bad.
Right. If you think Feza is a free space, if you're like really, really into Feza in this particular spot, and you look at those probable payoffs as you're looking to bet of the Oaks or the Black-Eyed Susan to Preakness Daily Doubles, if you can double your money, like what you think you'll get on Mage, if you think Mage is going to be like a $5 horse on Saturday, which is probably right, 5 something on the win end, if that double's paying $10-11, if you can double your money and you think Feza is the free space, that's the way I always look at it. If I think a horse is a 6, cinch and I can get double on a daily double on the horse I
Yeah.
like in the next race, I think it's worth it then at that point, because that's basically telling you you're getting even money on Feza on a parlay. And if you think Feza is a cinch, then even money is actually value, but you can double your money then to Mage. So that's the way I would look at it if you're looking at the two favorites over the course of the 2 days. Let's go to the schedule of races that we're going to handicap now for Saturday at Old Hilltop. The Chick Lang Stakes will be the first that we handicap at race number 6. Race 6 on the day is at 1:29 in the afternoon. They get an early start on Preakness Day, 10:30 for first post time for the 14 race card. Chick Lang Stakes, named for the former general manager of the Maryland Jockey Club, the beloved Chick Lang, one of the most beloved iconic figures in the history of Maryland racing. Everybody loved Chick Lang. This race honors his memory. $200,000 grade 3. This is a good sprint race, Jeff, that over the years for the 3-year-olds has had some really good horses. Steve Ashmus has run some of his absolute best 3-year-old sprinters in this race over the years. And we've got a good one this year because you've got Super Chow, who's just, running through it down at Gulfstream. He's won, 6 of the last 7, something like that. And then Having a Meltdown, who, no matter where in the world he's run, whether it was the San Vicente or the Saudi Derby, has laid it out on the track. This is a good addition with 2 really good options at the top.
Yeah, I really think, though, at 6 furlongs, Having a Meltdown has an edge because he is very, very quick. And after winning his debut very impressively and then coming right back and winning the Best Pal, he won the first race at 5/8 and then 3/4 after that. He's been stretching out 7/8, 7/8, 7/8 a mile in the Saudi Derby. And that's really, I admire him because he's running at distances that are maybe a little farther than he really wants to run. But he's been hanging in there. Won the San Vicente going 7/8. I mentioned that. Won the Bob Hope at Del Mar, and both races were visually very impressive. Then he went to the Saudi Derby, and he lost a toughie in that race. Pretty good horse was behind him, though, that day, Dermot Sotogake. So he certainly did not run badly. Now he's fresh. He hasn't been out since February. And he's been burning up the track in the morning and looking great. He works fast, but he does it like this, which was to say that he's just kind of going along. He's not really being asked for that much. He's just kind of he's just doing what the jock's asking him to do, which is really not much. He's working in 59-3 here, and he looks fine. Good mover, good athlete, a happy horse, just finishing with plenty left. So I would think that fresh. We know he can run well fresh. He won his debut, 3/4 of a mile inside speed at Pimlico. You have to break, obviously. You hope that he'll do that. But if he does, I think he's quicker, at least as quick as anything in the race. And he's going to be hard to catch if he can clear this field early, and I think he will. So he's 8-5. There's no great gamble in this race, but maybe he won't go lower than that. I don't know. You have to look at the tote and try to figure out where the money's coming from. And certainly a horse like Super Chow is a tough horse. He's pretty good, and a few others in here that can run. But I think Having a Meltdown has got the resume to win this race.
There will be some pressure, though. There is speed in here, right? Super Chow's fast, proved right's really fast, made the lead in the Bay Shore in New York. Bristol Channel's cheap speed from Charlestown. But again, another horse who might run for the first, quarter mile of this race. Rivet made the lead last out in the Bachelor, went wire to wire for Steve Asmussen. If this race does have a meltdown, pun intended, with Having a Meltdown, Prince of Jericho, the local horse, is the interesting one in here because he's the closer in the race. He won the spectacular bid coming from off the pace. They tried to see if he could get to the Preakness because he's one of the best 3-year-olds in Maryland. As the distances got a little longer, the Miracle Wood did the Tessio. He showed that he wasn't a route horse. Now he cuts back. He's by Munnings. The Munnings always do well over the main track here at Pimlico. Good pedigree angle there. Locally based, although all of his races have been at Laurel, but I would think on pedigree, he's going to take to the track at Pimlico. Prince of Jericho, interesting in here. The husband-wife team, of course, the trainer Brittany Russell and her husband Sheldon Russell in the saddle. If there is a meltdown in this race, that's the horse I think to fear late, Prince of Jericho, the local. And by race 6 on the card on Saturday, at least we get a chance to see how the track's playing up to this point too. And does a closer have a chance, right? Or is speed just burning it up and nobody's making up any ground? If closers have a chance and the pace gets too hot, Prince of Jericho could be the horse to beat in there late, but you better get a price. Because if you're going to beat Super Chow in that record and you're going to beat Having a Meltdown in that record, you better be pushing 10-1. And I don't know if Prince of Jericho is going to be in the 10-1 area, but you better get 10-1 to beat those two horses, I think, in terms of fair value.
You're looking at the race just as I would. I mean, my gamble is that Having a Meltdown will shrug off the challenges and keep going.
Right.
I don't think anybody's going to run with Having a Meltdown and beat him. But I can certainly see a meltdown, as you pointed out.
Right.
And Prince of Jericho back sprinting, the old route to sprint play. I love that angle.
Yeah.
And, just grab him, sit, and make one run. That's all the way. You're not going to send this horse for his life early. He's never going to finish. You need help up front. So for me, and that's not actually a bad exacta play either if you want to just cold deck it, if you like having a meltdown.
Right.
I've done some pace projections, and I do think having a meltdown is quicker than the others if he wants to be. And from the rail, he's going to want to be. So that's the thing is, I mean, there's not going to be taking a hold or anything like that. So I think having a meltdown over Prince of Jericho would be a logical exacta play for me.
Yeah, that's a lot of times what happens in these races, right? The speed that tries to run with the quality speed all gets gutted, and they get tired, and somebody comes passing them all for seconds. So, yeah, good exacta play there. And if you think there could be an upset play, make sure you get a big price to play that upset. Next up in our handicapping is race number 7. It follows the Chick Lang on the card as well. It's the Gallarette Stakes, named for the famed turf mare. Of course, these are grass mares, grade 3, $100,000 race. If you got a turf mare race, you're expecting Chad Brown to be in town, and he is. And if you've got horses on the turf in the Mid-Atlantic, you're expecting Graham Motion to be present, and he is. This seems to be Motion and Brown and whoever else is in town. I mean, this is a race where Motion's got at least, 3 in here? And then you've got Chad with 2. So they've got 5 of the 7 entries in here. Brendan Walsh won't make him get away easy, though. He's winning everything in sight. He's got Princess Theorem in here as well. But, Jeff, I know you like one of the fillies from the Motion barn. It'll be first time for Graham Motion. She's been off since October last year when she ran in the Lydia Tessio over in Italy. They ran the Federico Tessio, of course, in Maryland, but the Lydia Tessio for the mares. Let's go to Italy. I know you love to put these foreign race calls on me, so we'll try to translate, but the runner-up in here, just by a head, Sopran Basilia. Keep an eye out for her, and we'll go back and take a look at her race last time out in Italy.
Anche Romagna Mia, quando siamo a 250 dal traguardo, Lyrical è ancora davanti, ma c'è lo scatto di Sopran Basilea che è in vantaggio nei confronti di Romagna Mia, la giovane che sferra l'attacco all'anziana. Sopran Basilea contro Romagna Mia, Sopran Basilea, Romagna Mia.
I particularly like the Italian guys yelling in the background. Oh, I think those were the ones that had the tough beat in there. But Sopran Basilia looked like she had the race won and then got nailed in the wire. Maybe she made the front and thought she was done at that point. Your thoughts on her in that race and how she plays in this race, the Gallarette?
You see, I don't speak Italian, but I seem to think that some of those guys were like, "You moved too soon, you idiot."
Too soon, yeah.
In Italian, of course. But so Sopran Basilia hit the front late and was nailed by a good filly, obviously. And before that, she was second to Atomic Blonde, who's a very nice filly. And that form is good enough, if repeated here, to win this type of race, a grade 3. A couple of notes about this 5-year-old mare. I like the fact that she's been first or second 10 out of 15 starts. So, I mean, she's usually pretty genuine, pretty consistent. She was also entered twice back last month. She was entered in the Bewitch at Keeneland on the 28th. That was the race that Warlike Goddess won. She was actually stabled, obviously, in Maryland, and then the following day she was entered in the Dahlia, which was the race that she had intended to run at Laurel, but the race was taken off the turf because of the rain, so she didn't run in either one of those races. So she's actually been ready to run now for a while, and I think even though a mile and 1/16 looks like it might be a little sharp for her, she's basically been a mile and a quarter type mare, and maybe you might think they're just getting her started and kind of giving her a little bit of a run here and then stretching her out to the more classic, the longer distances. I still think she's good enough on class to run at this level, at this distance. She's a good enough mare, I think, to win a race like this. She's 4-1. And that seems like a reasonable gamble. She's not a deep closer, as you saw. She can lay fairly close up and kind of quicken, which is what she did. And I think she's going to adapt to this distance and this track very nicely. So at 4-1 in the morning line, I'm going to go with the Irish-bred Italian raced Sopran Basilia to win the Gallarette.
She should get a good trip in post 2. Sias is pretty aggressive out of the gate, getting position. And really, Traffic Song, the 3, is the speed of the race. And everybody else kind of wants to sit in that, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of area. There's not a lot of deep closers in this race. And there's really not any other speed other than Traffic Song. And that horse is stepping up in class out of the allowance rank. So those horses who get the first overrun, second, third, fourth, are going to be very formidable in this race. We'll see what kind of trip Sias can get, but a great post position to try to do it from the 2 hole in there. The speed in the 3 clears out, goes across and gets in front of everybody. And then he can kind of just sit in the 2 path there and see where he falls with the rest of the field aboard Sopran Basilia. So interesting race in the Gallarette Stakes. Jeff's got one of the 3 Grand Motions in there. Chad Brown will have 2 shots in there to try to maintain his stranglehold on the Filly Ameriturf division. Let's go next to the Dinner Party Stakes. This is our Xpressbet race of the week. If you get the Xpressbet email newsletter, you've already seen my analysis for this race. If you haven't, go sign up for it at expressbet.com and at firstbet.com. Get on the mailing list there, and you'll get the Xpressbet race of the week sent to you in your email box each and every week. Jeff, we've got 3 Grand Motions in the Dinner Party Stakes. He's busy with his horses on the turf throughout the course of this weekend. The Dinner Party will be race 8 on the card Saturday at Pimlico. We've got the Pegasus World Cup winner Atone in here, a grade 1 winner. We've got Speaking Scout, the Hollywood Derby winner in this field, a grade 1 winner. You've got a grade 2 winner in Emmanuel, who's grade 1 placed. This is a grade 3 race worth $200,000 that over the years has been one of the absolute A-list turf races in America. It's lost some of its luster, but you can't tell me this is grade 3, $200,000 when you've got 2 grade 1 winners, a grade 1 place, grade 2 winner in the field, and some quality all around. There is not a throwout in this race. I was looking at it from a handicapping standpoint, and I'm like, okay, where are the tosses? There are no tosses in the 7-horse field. Some may be better than others, but there's nobody in bad form and nobody who looks overmatched in here. This is a really competitive group.
We have a grade 1 turf mile race here at Santa Anita called the Kilroe Mile, which is a grade 1. This field was better than that. I can tell you that right now. I mean, this is a grade 3. It doesn't really make that much difference. The purse is still pretty decent, but these horses if this was a $500,000 race or a $750,000 race, you wouldn't bat an eye. As a matter of fact, the Tone won a grade 1 earlier this year, and he's the morning line favorite at 9-5, and he could win. I don't know what happened to him in Fairgrounds, but he certainly is going to catch a favorable pace scenario here. I don't think they'll be going particularly fast here, and should be right up in there where he wants to be, maybe even on the lead. I'm going to try Emmanuel here, and the reason why I'm going for him is because I think his last race might turn people off. He was non-competitive. He made his mile, but that might as well have been, if there's an arc going a mile, that would be the arc.
It was a Breeders' Cup mile, at least. That was a really good race.
It was tougher. And I'll tell you why it was tougher, is because Modern Games got his head handed to him, and he was the Breeders' Cup mile winner, a 2-time Breeders' Cup winner, and he couldn't get close to Chez Pierre. So I'm not going to hold that race against Emmanuel. And by the way, the 3rd horse, Up to the Mark, he's not exactly a slouch either. He is a world-class miler, and even he couldn't keep up. So
he came back on Derby Day to win the Turf Classic and looked so good doing it. So he's already come back on a grade 1 race out of that.
He looked like one of the top 5 milers in the world, Yeah. So Emmanuel had no chance in that race. But his previous races were good. He had won his previous 2, a couple of grade 3s, one at Tampa and one at Gulfstream Park. And while he used to be a horse that I thought needed the lead to win or wanted to be on the front end, he can drop over and settle. And I think in this race, with a Tone on the inside and not much speed drawn in the middle there somewhere, I think there's a chance for Irad Ortiz to get Emmanuel on the engine early, and it's no worse than sitting second, galloping along on the outside, and maybe if the Tone doesn't get sent, maybe even on the lead. But I think you're going to see the kind of a performance that Emmanuel earned or did when he won the Canadian Turf at Gulfstream Park 2 races back. That was a very, very strong performance. I think he can run back to that race on Saturday.
He had a lot of trouble. Pete Aiello is going to pick it up at the top of the stretch. And listen, as Javier Castellano aboard Emmanuel's trying to find somewhere to go, he finally gets it.
Steady On to Chevenek on top. Super Dormy is second. Castellano, he has his hands full of Emmanuel, but he's got no place to go yet. 3/4, 1:11 and 2. Safe Conduct battles back inside to take the lead. Now racetrack for Emmanuel. Meanwhile, Steady On got the jump on him. Steady On is in front. Emmanuel hitting high gear. Final 16th of a mile, and here comes Emmanuel down the center, getting up to win it. Second is Steady On. Fort Washington rolled home for third.
Jeff, I don't understand how it plays with jocks and owners and trainers and who gets what assignments, but Javier Castellano got that one through trouble, got the victory. They got beat last time, but his reward for all that is getting canned here, and Irad Ortiz gets the mount on Emmanuel. I mean, Javier will take it, right? I mean, he won the Kentucky Derby 2 weeks ago. He's got the mount on Mage a little bit later today. He lands on Easter in this race, but I can't imagine that was his first choice to jump off Emmanuel to go ride Easter in this particular spot. So little musical jockeys for you in the Dinner Party Stakes. I took a shot in here with Rising Empire for Brendan Walsh. Walsh is winning everything in sight. We've seen it over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, dating back to the beginning of the Keeneland meet. He gets Johnny Velasquez to ride. I agree with you that there's not much speed in this race at all. He was able to make the lead in the Mervyn Muniz and just get beat at the wire by Spooky Channel that day. I'm giving a shot to Rising Empire, but I will admit no Lasix does concern me because he didn't run well in the Elkhorn Stakes. That was stretched out to 1.5 miles, but that was without Lasix. He's without Lasix here, so I'm a little worried about that. But if it's not the Lasix and it was the 1.5 miles last time, and a good field, Red Knight, the runner-up in that Elkhorn, came back to win the Man of War Grade 1 at Belmont last weekend. Maybe it was the competition, maybe it was the 1.5 miles, and it wasn't the Lasix. But I think the pace will set up nicely for Rising Empire. I expect him to be fairly close. And right now, I'm just going to ride the Brendan Walsh train. Give me a ticket. I don't want anybody sitting next to me on the train. I just want to ride it because everything he sends out is running so well.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you say, top to bottom, a chance. A really good, interesting race, and a kind of a race in a race because the winner of this race, it might be the winner might be dictated by what kind of pace we have. If they somehow engage, if a tone goes and the horse that you like goes and. Maybe an Emmanuel, maybe they've got it in their mind they want to send, and things could set up nicely for a closer. But if they're dawdling, these are the kind of horses that if they go slow and they switch off, they're good enough to re-break, and they're tough to catch when they go slow and early. So, right. I mean, watching them go by the stands for the first time is as critical as watching them where they go in the final furlong almost, because that'll dictate how the race shape comes up, and that'll dictate who wins.
Dinner Party, race number 8 on the card. That's usually the race right before the Preakness Stakes, but it's moved up earlier in the program this year. It'll be race number 8. Next up on our schedule to handicap here on Saturday at Old Hilltop will be the Maryland Sprint. This is race number 11 on the card. Grade 3 worth $100,000, and some horses that have had some form in the past, Prevalence, Nakatomi, but there's some horses maybe that you're looking on the local ranks with Wonder Where Craig Is, Hello Hot Rod, and then you've got a shipper, Jeff, Straight No Chaser, that I know you like off of this effort at Oaklawn Park last time. Let's take a look back and see his most recent unveiling.
We're going to angle wide, coming for home off the turn. And with the lead, it is Straight No Chaser. He tries to get a little clear. Garhole is all out, but 3 lengths back. Straight No Chaser is responding in the final furlong, and the Southern California Invader has just drawn clear. It's going to be a big battle for second involving Ruggs and Osborne. Straight No Chaser by 7. Osborne up for second, then Ruggs, Garhole.
That was awfully dominant there, ready to make the step into a natural stakes race. This horse had been in the stakes ranks before, but off that allowance win, now going to the grade 3, 100 grander, 6 furlongs. This looks like a natural rise in class. This doesn't look like too much, and that last race was impressive.
It was, and I'm picking him to win this race, but the situation's a little different here. In that allowance race, he caught our field that really didn't have any early speed and was able to make the lead in hand. And you can see this fractions, 45 and 2 1/2, finished out in 9 flat, coming home in 23 and 3, which is what Straight No Chaser is capable of doing given the soft type of pace scenario that he was blessed with in that allowance race.
Right.
But now you've got Wonder Where Craig Is on the outside of him, and he doesn't want to wait around for anybody. And if Straight No Chaser is forced to go a lot faster in this race than he did last time, then that could prove fatal to him, because he's one of these kind of horses that and I've seen him run. He was out here at California, and he's not sitting and stalking and going by anybody. He's onto the front, and whether or not, and depending upon how fast he has to go the opening quarter and half, will depend on how well he finishes. So, if somehow, some way, you can get the edge on Wonder where Craig is early, and Russell decides to kind of sit right behind him, then he'll never get by him. But if he goes with him and goes head and head, then you might have a problem. So this is a tough race for me. I think it's another race where the opening quarter is going to dictate the winner of this race. Yeah. And if Straight No Chaser is able to sneak away early and get into the bridle and just sit there, he's gone. But if he's doing this the whole way, then it's going to be tough.
Nakatomi benefits if they go fast. He's the finisher in the race. You hardly ever say that with a Wesley Ward trainee, that he's got the finisher in the race, right? I mean, Ward's known for like gate and go, but Nakatomi can rate and sit and pounce, and under Tyler Gaffleone would be the late threat in this race. So the two favorites in this race have different running styles. So if you're looking at multi-race wagers, I like to say that a lot. If you're going to go too deep in a race, take horses with divergent running styles, because if it sets up for one, it won't set up for the other if you have the same running styles. But in this particular case, if it goes fast, then it sets up for Nakatomi. If it goes slow, it's Straight No Chaser. And I think that's a too deep situation that gets you through this race probably under most predicted scenarios for the Maryland Sprint. To the 12th race we go next. It's the James W. Murphy. If you're familiar with him, it's the Jimmy Murphy, one of the most beloved trainers in Maryland for decades. This race memorializes Jimmy Murphy, $100,000 purse here. 3-year-olds on the turf. They give a lot of chances for the 3-year-olds Preakness weekend to run. You got the sprint race in the Chick Lang. You got the turf mile here for the Jimmy Murphy. And then, of course, the Preakness Stakes. They've got their chances to shine. In the Jimmy Murphy, we've got a couple Triple Crown nominees, horses like Circling the Drain and Fantastic Again. They didn't make it to the Triple Crown, but they ran okay along the trail. Private Terms third for Circling the Drain, and a third place finish in the Jeff Ruby for Fantastic Again. A race, Jeff, that you have to move up after, as well as Two Phils ran on Kentucky Derby Day. He ran a winning race most years. Two Phils, the runaway winner of the Jeff Ruby, but Fantastic Again's pace and held for third in that race. I think it's flattered by the Kentucky Derby result.
Well, not only that, but I don't really think Fantastic Again wants any part of a mile and an eighth. He's a miler. But if you go back and watch that race, he looked like he was home free at the quarter pole. I mean, he really was breezing on the lead. I mean, and if you looked at if you'd watched his previous two races, you knew that he could give you a second move. And I'm thinking, this horse is gone, and he would have been gone, I think, if Two Phils wasn't Two Phils. We found out Two Phils is not just Two Phils. He's one of the best 3-year-olds in the country, and there are some who probably still believe, or maybe believe, that he is the best. I don't know. But the bottom line is Fantastic Again is now dropping back to a mile. He's also trying grass for the first time. Now, he has one prior grass race, but that was sprinting in his debut, so I'm not going to count that. It's by his son of More Than Ready. He gets Lasix for the first time, which won't hurt. Switching to Johnny V, inside draw. Now, there is pace on the outside of him. I wonder how much pace Top Recruit coming out of a series of sprint is going to show, whether they might try to grab him a little bit to try to slow him down. Western Yarn, the 3-hole, has got front running speed, but he's not blazingly quick. I would love for them to ignore Fantastic Again and have Fantastic Again break from the rail and sneak away to that clubhouse turn and establish the running. If he does that, then I think he's going to go all the way. At 3-1. Now, if he gets hooked early, then it's precarious. I don't think there is any intention of taking him back. Wesley Ward, as you mentioned, not taking anybody back unless he has to. So I think Fantastic Again is going to be committed to go to the front, and maybe in doing so, maybe scares off the other two speeds. We'll know going into the clubhouse turn. I'll know if I like him. I'm betting on him. I'll know whether I have any kind of shot in the first furlong or so, And but I'm going to gamble that this is what he wants to do: a mile on turf, fresh, training well, first time Lasix inside draw. I'm going with Fantastic Again to win the Jimmy Murphy.
The fantastic again, jockey changed to John Velasquez in this race. We mentioned this on our Tuesday podcast earlier this week, though. Watch races for years, and you'll know when Johnny V's got speed on the rail, he's going to be about in the 3 path going to the clubhouse turn, and then he's going to make that quick dive into the inside and try to take everybody else out of 2 paths. So if you're outside of Fantastic again, going into the clubhouse turn, you're better off tucking inside, because if you try to go abreast, you're going to end up, I think, out of 2 paths and lose ground. And then he makes that angle, and he doesn't lose any ground, but everybody else does in reaction. And so I think this is a place for his crafty ride to be very effective.
I think he probably learned that watching Cordero back in the day.
I believe probably so. Nagarok also in this race, interesting. He owes me nothing. He was my long shot to play in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, won 3rd at 39-1 and juicing up the trifecta that day. He's been a little disappointing in 2 starts this year as the favorite, getting beat a length. Grab Motion now turns to blinkers on Nagarok. Usually blinkers on to put a horse into a race a little bit earlier than usual, or get them to finish and get away from the pack a little bit and not run with the herd. I think this is more of the latter. I think they didn't like the way he idled in the stretch in his last 2, and they're trying to get more finish out of him with the blinkers than necessarily get him into the race early. Tough post from the 9 hole going to turf mile here with all the speed to the inside. We'll see what kind of trip Pratt gets with Nagarok. And if you're wondering what in the world a Nagarok is, it's Corrigan spelled backwards. He's owned by Corrigan Racing. So I figured that out last year after I was mispronouncing the name the whole time.
What is Plonk backwards? Nope, right?
Nope, or something like that. Yeah, I don't know.
Nope. Okay.
We'll name a horse Nope. We'll come up with something like that. To the Preakness we go, and it's the big event on Saturday's card, race number 13 of 14. Preakness number 148's got $1.5 million purse. 3-year-olds in here, and we have a field of 8, not a traditional field of 8. We have the Kentucky Derby winner and 7 first-timers to the Triple Crown Series. The 7 rivals for Mage in here did not compete in the Triple Crown Series. Jeff, let's talk about Mage. We're going to get a little bit of look at some of his training. If you didn't see from the Maryland Jockey Club this weekend or this week, they've given a news feed out each day that includes some of the training, and we get to see Mage on the track at Old Hilltop. He's been there all week. Jeff, thoughts on the horse, what you see here in some of the video, that sort of thing. Mage is the headliner and the star of the show for the Preakness.
He looks great to me. I mean, he looks happy. I just watching video like everybody else, but those who have actually seen him live on track, up close and personal, are saying that he looks fantastic for a horse that obviously had to lay it down 2 weeks ago. And, you know, I always say that the good horses can overcome short rest and hard races. That's why they're good, you know.
Right.
The cheaper ones, they're the ones that fall apart. So I think Mage is going to be just fine. And I also think Castellano probably learned something about him in that while I don't think it was his plan to be 15th, 15 lengths back as they pass the stands for the first time, he also found out that he doesn't need to panic with this horse. He's got a push-button horse. He made an extended run to catch up and be near the lead top of the stretch, but he wasn't really asked to do that. He was kind of making up ground on his own courage. And then when Javier pushed the button and said, okay, we're here now. Now what are you going to give me? And found out this horse can give you that really good turn of foot from the quarter pole home. I think he can ride this horse with immense amount of confidence, not worrying about where I have to be early. I don't have to be on the lead. I don't have to be 2 lengths off it. I can be anywhere I want to be, and this horse is going to lay it down for me. And that's something that I think is in the Mage's favor. So if he comes back and runs to the 105 buyer number that he earned with trouble after a slow start, I think this race is over, even though there are some nice improving colts in here. First Mission is really progressing nicely for Brad Cox. His numbers are rising rapidly. He's got great tactical speed. National Treasure is probably the controlling speed. I don't think he's this good, but I don't think he's ever going to get a better chance to be this good because I think they'll let him alone. And then you've got some horses that the one like I know that you like, Perform. We don't know how good he is. There aren't that many colts that could have won the Federico Tessio with the trip that he got. And I know he didn't beat a lot that day, but the way he did it suggests that he's going to be dangerous for sure if he steps forward, which I think he will. And he's gotten better race by race, Jeremy.
Yeah, this is his win 2 starts back, performed for Shug McGahee in the maiden ranks. This is one of those horses that took a while to break the maiden, 5-6 losses in the maiden ranks. But when the nibbler finally breaks out and has a daylight performance like this, they often are really just getting it. And when we talk about his last race, he's last on the rail on the inside here with the red cap, next to last on the rail. Horses don't win from here. And this is like, you're thinking, okay, maybe 4th or 5th. Now you see him and you say, yeah, maybe he could get 3rd. Oh, wait, he's going to go into the rail here. No, he got through. Now maybe he could get 2nd. But this last 40 yards is unbelievable. The acceleration and the way he's reaching out with his neck. I just really kind of fell in love on video with this horse perform. He's not a horse as I handicap on paper. My first run through a race, I'm saying, oh, this is my guy, right? And even when I watched the Tessio, he wasn't my guy. He wasn't the guy for the connections either. He wasn't nominated to the Triple Crown Series. He had a win and you're in where they were going to pay the expenses and the entry fees and the travel and everything for Preakness horses who win the Tessio. But since he wasn't Triple Crown nominated, he didn't even get that benefit. They had to pay $150,000 to a late supplement to run in this race. And they weren't willing to do that right off the bat either. He's had a couple bullet workouts really strong, which you don't see with McGahee trainees of late. And then they said they wanted a supplement. Me thinks he's doing really good. That Tampa race was a tip-off that the nibbler had broken out. The race at Laurel and the Tessio was something else the last, 40, 50 yards. And now he's working well. I like the confident move. I've got nothing against Mage. I just maybe it's that old, you missed the wedding, don't go to the funeral thing, right? I didn't have him at 15-1 in the Derby. Do I want him at $5 in the Preakness? I get it. He's the best horse. He's probably the most likely winner, but I'm taking a shot here. And I know it's a stretch because this is a race where stretches don't win very often, right? Long shots don't win the Preakness with frequency, but every once in a while we get one to pop, and maybe this is the time.
I wish there was, for performance sake, I wish there was another committed front runner in the race to ensure that National Treasure doesn't go 23-4, 47-4, 112 and change. Because that, if they went 46, 110 and change, then you look at Perform and figure, okay, here's a horse that we know is going to come from out of it. I was surprised because after he won the Tessio and he was visually that impressive, you would have thought that Shug would have taken an intermediate step and then maybe point for the Belmont. Maybe he didn't want to back him up and run him in the Peter Pan. Right. When I say back him up, it's one-turn race. There really wasn't anything maybe that he could do in the interim to get him fit. So he said, I'll go. I want to go 2 turns. I know I'm going to run against horses that were not in the Derby other than the winner. How tough could it be, right?
Right.
And so it's 15-1. And with the way he's been training, I remember I can kind of relate to him because back in '89 we had a horse named Martial Law in the big cap, and he went off at 50-1, and we had to put up $40,000 to supplement him in that race for a 50-1 shot, and people thought we were crazy.
You were.
Well, we might have been a little crazy, but here's the thing, Jeremy. The reason why we did it is because we had breezed him a mile. I guess it was a mile. Yeah, I think it was a mile. No, it was 3/4 of a mile, 10 days before, and he went in 11 and change, just like this, galloped out a mile in 36-1. And I never had a horse work that way, that well. So, the people were game. We had won an allowance race. That money was going to pay for the entry. So we decided to do it, and he won. And I can see what Shug's thinking. This probably didn't come up on his radar until maybe he said, wait a minute, this horse, I couldn't get him to work 103. He just went in a minute. He went in 47, one in fastest in 59. Yeah. I mean, he's a good magic. They're not supposed to be precocious, right? Yeah. I think he's saying, guys, I don't know how good this horse is, but I don't think anybody does. Yeah. And he's a lot better now than he was a month ago. So you're on to something here with Perform. And I the one thing that I can tell you based on the supplement, and all that other stuff is, Shug's telling his people this horse is going to run the race of his life. Now, you tell me if it's good enough, but I'm telling you he's going to run the race of his life,
Yeah, that's what we're going to find out. He did run neck and neck for the first half mile plus head-to-head with Mage in a maiden race, 3 starts back in Mage's debut. So, He's as brilliant for a while as Mage even, and then he can finish with that kick. So look, we're taking a shot here. We'll figure out how it turns out. But Mage is the obvious top choice in this race. First Mission, the obvious second choice in the wagering in here, coming off the win in the Lexington. Those will be the top two wagering choices. Beyond that, you kind of get a gap to the others. And our partner Eddie Olczyk for the first Preakness wager guide, he's got his eye on one of the others too. I'm going with Perform, but Eddie's got a little feeling here for Blazing Sevens. Let's take a look at one of his contender profiles that you can get at YouTube. Winning the Preakness with a horse who skipped the Kentucky Derby's old hat for Chad Brown. He did it with Cloud Computing back in 2017. He did it again last year with early voting. So why not the third time a charm for Blazing Sevens, Eddie?
Well, why not? I would agree with you. There seems to be a lot of steam with this horse, the way that he's been working, Jeremy. The blinkers went on in the bluegrass. I don't think he got the greatest. I mean, he didn't get the greatest trip, obviously. I don't think that was one of his finer days. I thought that he had a chance to save a little bit more ground, during the run of the race. But look, the horse never, he didn't stop trying, which was obviously a real positive. I think, the track, the way that it was playing at Keeneland that day, certainly didn't favor, Blazing Sevens from, coming off. But look, we're a couple of days out here. With full disclosure, this is probably where I'm leaning right now. Let's see how the track plays on Friday and how the track plays on Saturday. But yeah, why not third time a charm for Chad Brown in the Preakness?
Blazing Sevens, again, a third in the Bluegrass Stakes. He's really only had one bad race on his form. That was the Fountain of Youth, but he seemed to bounce back from that. Again, all indications are he is working well for the Preakness Stakes. Chad Brown trying to do it for the third time with a new shooter. We'll see if he can pull it off. When you play this weekend's Preakness Stakes and Black Eyed Susan, be sure to do it with Xpressbet and FirstBet. So we've got 5 of those contender profiles from Eddie. You get his opinion. Check those out at YouTube. Also a link with all of the videos. Jeff and I did 2-minute segments. We've got 3 of those. Eddie's got 5 contender previews. If you go to the blog section, expressbet.com and at news.first.com, we've got them all logged in there together where you can watch all 8 videos, all 2 minutes or so or less, and a chance to get our thoughts on many different opinions and horses for Saturday's Preakness Stakes. Gambling on this race, Jeff has his wagering strategy inside the wagering guide, so go to the first Preakness wager guide for that, and my wagering strategy in there as well. We've given you our opinions on the Preakness Stakes. Now it's time to get to the windows, Jeff, and log the account in, get the account funded up for Friday and Saturday, and a huge 2 days of racing to come in Maryland at Old Hilltop.
No, it's going to be great. I think that the fact that the weather will be good and the grass course will be in great shape and the races are competitive. I mean, you and I have handicapped these races, and every race seems to have a contingency in it. Like if this pace happens, this horse will win, which gives us a chance maybe to spread a little bit in these rolling exotics. So if you're playing pick 3s, pick 4s, and pick 5s, have a little bit of coverage, right? But you got to play it the right way, as you pointed out. Imagine how you think the race is going to run, and then use that as your guide. But if it doesn't, take an alternate strategy and put it all together so you're covered no matter what happens. So the handicapping and the races are going to be fun, and the Preakness obviously carries a lot of weight because we will find out whether or not we have a chance for a Triple Crown. And I think, and by the way, I didn't realize this until I noticed it, but there's 8 horses in the race in the Preakness, and 3 of them are by Good Magic. And I mean, Good Magic is this year's Gun Runner, and Gun Runner was that year's Constitution, and we've got a new hot sire here. So I mean, it's good to see Good Magic, who was a really good racehorse, maybe born in the wrong year, but he was a good racehorse,
right?
As was Gun Runner, by the way. Same thing. So, but these horses are starting to make it big, and it's very important for the breeding industry as well, these races. And so hopefully we all get a good, clean race and may the best horse win.
Yeah, Good Magic had the misfortune of being born the same year as Justify and racing through that 28 Triple Crown series. So that's going to wrap up our handicapping. Again, we want to remind you, $10 money back special on all your win bets Friday and Saturday at Xpressbet and FirstBet on the app. Up to $10 back if your win bet finishes second or third in any race. And if you feel strong about your opinions and this is the weekend you want to dive into the handicapping tournament ranks, or you're a regular tournament player, the $1,500 bankroll, $1,500 entry fee, live money bankroll tournament, the Preakness Challenge is at expressbet.com only on Saturday. Be sure to get involved in that. Probably be somewhere in the neighborhood 150 to 200 players for that tournament. $15,000 or $1,500 should be an excellent handicapping tournament. A chance for you to make some big time cash in there. So check that out. Expressbet.com tournaments, the best place online to play the tournaments among the ADWs, far and away. Expressbet.com. You want to check that out and get involved. So that's a wrap, Jeff. A lot of our cohorts are either en route or already in Baltimore. We will be back here on Tuesday on the It's Official podcast to recap everything from Preakness 148 and a great week of racing in Baltimore. I'm going to say hi-ho Pimlico for my final word to give you a chance to say goodbye.
Just a reminder that I'll be working simulcast this Friday and Saturday at Santa Anita. I'll have my iPad here watching the Pimlico races, but I'll be on the simulcast show. So if you're playing Santa Anita, certainly check us out. You can get that on the website, Santa Anita website live. You can do that, and RTN Network as well. So I've got 2 tracks to worry about, but it's fun. That's what we live for here in this sport, and I'll be enjoying it. So good luck to everybody, no matter what race track you're playing, whether it's Santa Anita, Pimlico, or any place else. We will be there and hopefully imparting some knowledge to you.